Good evening, and welcome to the Get Football Mercato show, here every weekday to bring you the latest transfer news from across France, Germany, and Italy. I am Alessandro Pugliese, filling in for Nathan Staples, and joining me this evening are Claudio Perfetto from Get Italian Football News, Axel Falk from Get German Football News, as well as Tom Scholes and Hal Walker from Get French Football News. We start off tonight with news from Gianluca Di Marzio, as the Italian is reporting Barcelona have made an offer to Manchester United consisting of 50 million euros plus both Yerry Mina, and Andre Gomes. What are your thoughts about the latest news regarding the Frenchmen, both Hal and Tom?
Well, I think a lot of it comes out of mainly Mina Raiola. A lot of the noise seems to be coming from his part, not necessarily Manchester United or even Paul Pogba. He came back to training today from the World Cup, and then he walked into training, and this is the news that faces him. Now, everybody knows that Man United need a centre-back. In the past few days, they've been linked with about 12 of them. Harry Maguire, Jerome Boateng, Toby Alderweireld, and now Yerry Mina. That's been going on for a week or however long now. So at least that part of the deal seems to be a bit more realistic. But Andre Gomes, Paul Pogba, to me, it doesn't add up. It seems a bit of showmanship and a bit of pandering from other sides. But, maybe Hal's got a different view to it than I have.
Yeah, I mean, just to back up what you're saying, really, there, Tom. I think that Barcelona could be just testing the waters here. But it's clear that Man United's interest in Mina has cooled from where we were a few weeks ago anyway. As you say, that they've turned their attentions now mainly to Toby Alderweireld and Harry Maguire. So this could move forward again. And Yerry Mina himself may well be off somewhere else. But this could develop more in the next 48 hours for sure.
I certainly agree, gentlemen. We've definitely seen Mina Raiola play these tricks before, no doubt. On to Italy, where Milan have had a busy day with a legend returning to the club, a striker departing, and potentially missing out on a midfield target. Help us break down the Rossoneri's day, Claudio.
Yeah, as you said, it was a very busy day for Milan at Casa Milan. It started with a very positive news of Paolo Maldini returning to the club. Now, unfortunately for the club, he can no longer play for them, which I'm sure they would love at this point. But his returning is more of a symbolic thing for the fans and for Italian football, especially because Maldini has famously been holding out his return to Milan because he would only join a serious project with the specified role, which it seems he finally is receiving from Elliott and under Leonardo. So more than anything, it's just a signal that the club is moving in the right direction and has a great chance to return back to its glory days at the top of European football. And then on the other end of the spectrum, Nikola Kalinic is moving to Atletico Madrid. It was a failed experiment with Kalinic. I still think he's a decent striker, but it just didn't work out for him in Milan. He didn't get off to a great start. From there, he really just lost confidence, was not the same player we saw at Fiorentina, and a change of scenery is probably the best for him. It's actually being reported as a permanent transfer. It was thought to be a loan with an obligation to buy, but it looks like it's actually going to be a permanent transfer for just under 15 million euros. So they'll be happy to move on from him and get his wages off the books, even though they spent probably about 10 million more than that last year. And then Bernard is being reported as being close to Everton. Milan was very close to him. The player wanted to join Milan reportedly. They never made the move. Apparently, they had to wait for Kalinic to leave before they could make a move for him. But I get the sense that maybe Leonardo wasn't that interested in him. I think Leonardo, from the press conference today with Maldini, it seems like the club really only want to make signings that they see would improve the quality of the club vastly. They don't want to bring in any more, average or good players. They want to improve the club vastly by any future signings that they make. So I'm sure that's more why they're passing on it, because it was a good deal, free transfer. The agent fees were kind of high, but they didn't have to pay any transfer fee for him. So that's the only reason why I could see them passing up on that.
All right, thank you, Claudio. And meanwhile, in Germany, Bild are reporting that Manchester United have officially opened negotiations with Bayern Munich for Jerome Boateng. What can you tell us about the latest report there, Axel?
That is correct. Looks to be around 45 to 50 million from Manchester United. It looks like Jose Mourinho has told the owners at Manchester United that he wants Jerome Boateng and that they know it, and therefore they have, according to Christian Falk at Sportbild, who's very, very close to the top at Bayern Munich, have started negotiations with the Bavarian club about signing of Jerome Boateng, who has, of course, been a long-term target for them. It will probably be him or Yerry Mina. I think Yerry Maguire is also an option for them. I do think that Jerome Boateng for 45 or 30 million would probably be the most worthy for that price of the three. So it will be a very good signing for Manchester United. I can understand why Bayern Munich are trying to sell him. He's kind of faded in the last few seasons, and I think Hummels and Schüller will do quite well without him, to be honest. So it could be interesting, could be good for all three parties, even though I think Manchester United and Jerome Boateng get the most out of the deal if it were to happen.
I know it might be a little hard to predict at the moment, but I mean, we've heard these rumors continuing for a little while, Axel. Do you think it's likely for Man United to close this deal before the deadline in the next few days?
Normally, I would have said so, but considering it's a close deadline, I'm not too sure, because if they would have had as much time as Bayern Munich have in the transfer window, which is basically one more month almost, I think this deal would have been almost certain to happen. But now, considering it's quite close, it's very, very close deadline, only a few days, it seems a bit more uncertain, I would say. So it could happen, could not happen. I think it's like 50-50, perhaps 60-40 to Man United. So yeah, I think it could happen. It could definitely happen, but it needs to be quick. Negotiations, of course, need to be quite swift and rapid, and the negotiations with Boateng need to be there as well.
All right, thank you, Axel. And on to our focus on each league this evening. We will start a bit of a crossover here, as recent reports are coming flying in that Inter Milan are in serious negotiations with AS Monaco regarding Keita Balde. Claudio, I'll go to you first. What can you tell us about this latest report?
Yeah, so actually on the Demartio site, we just had a report come out that Inter is indeed involved in negotiations for Keita Balde. They were also apparently offered Juan Mata from Manchester United, but they don't seem to be that interested in that move. Keita seems to be the priority. It makes sense. Inter need a winger. They need an upgrade over Antonio Candreva. They signed Matteo Politano earlier in the transfer window, but Spalletti playing in the Champions League and Serie A would like depth at the position, so it's the move that makes sense. And I actually saw reports not on Demartio but on other sites that the move might actually be an exchange between Keita and Candreva. So it would be a very, very good move for Inter if they're able to pull it off.
And from the French side, how do we see things over there, Tom and Hal?
I think it's moving a bit more quickly now, even since we've come on here. It's been a move that, if I remember correctly, it was someone that was being chased a lot when he was at Lazio. He had a really impressive season there a couple of years ago, and then he goes to Monaco. He was meant to be one of the players to lead like a new era at Monaco after the departure of Mbappe, and when they won the league and everything like that. And it hasn't quite worked out as well as it should have. But I could imagine in this Inter team with Spalletti and the way they want to play and some of the players they have, it suits his system more. He knows the league, he suits the league a bit more than he might do in France. And I think it's a move that it's excelled even more since we've come on. By the time we've ended, he might even be an Inter play. You never know. But I think it's a good move for both parties, for both player and Inter, and it might even be a really good one for Monaco.
Yeah, I mean, just to follow up with what you're saying there, Tom. I mean, as you say, he's got experience of the league. He's played for many years in the Serie A. I think he's had 4 or 5 seasons playing in the capital, and he has had a good. Even though he's been slightly more out of the spotlight in the last 12 months, he hasn't had a bad season. I think he scored 8 or 9 goals at the Stade Louis II this season. So he's. I think he will fit in with Spalletti's style, and he's quite a versatile player, can play out on the wing or behind the striker. So this could work. This could well move forward again.
Yeah, and if I could just interrupt, it's very true. Inter were actually after him last summer, but so were Juventus and Milan. He was a hot prospect in Italy over the past few seasons before his move to Monaco, and even in January there was some rumblings of a move back to a big club in Italy. So I think he would serve Inter greatly, especially because of his success in the league already.
Well put, gentlemen. And while we are on the topic of Inter, Claudio, can you give us a little update on the Luka Modric situation?
Yeah, so as of today on the Martio, we reported that Modric will have a meeting with Florentino Perez on either Wednesday or Thursday of this week. It's looking likely that he might actually ask for an exit from Real Madrid. That hasn't been confirmed, though. It's an interesting situation. Modric is 32 years old. Maybe Real Madrid would be interested in getting a high price for him at this point in his career, but he's fundamental to the team. So I don't know if they'd be willing to lose Ronaldo and Modric in the same summer, but we'll see. Inter definitely are interested. They keep pursuing him, and it'll be a great move for them. There are some rumblings that they are trying to pair it together with the Chinese club that Suning own, and maybe he'll come to Inter for a few years before making a high wage move to China. So maybe that something like that will entice him. But that's the latest that we should know by the end of the week what his intentions are and what Real Madrid's intentions are.
Alrighty. And how about what has the boisterous Napoli president Aurelio De Laurentiis mentioned about his star center back?
Yeah, he mentioned that he's under contract for an additional 5 years. They've agreed to a renewal, which is a huge move for Napoli. Koulibaly last year, it was arguably their most important player. I think personally he's the best center back in Italy, without a doubt. Might even be one of the top in the world at this point. He's got all the tools, and he's fundamental for that team. Ancelotti definitely would not want to lose him in his first season in charge at Napoli. So it's a great move for the club if they're able to hold on to him, especially because their preseason hasn't really gone that well. And then in other news, Juventus also had a few important renewals. They're working on the renewals of Pjanic, Alessandro, and Rugani. Pjanic was had rumors of maybe a possible Barcelona or English Premier League move early in the transfer window, but it looks like he's set to stay, which makes sense because these players now, like Pjanic and Sandro, I'm sure want to have the opportunity to play for Juventus while Cristiano Ronaldo is on in the club, and they have a real shot at winning the Champions League. And then Rugani is a renewal that makes sense. He had interest from Chelsea earlier in the transfer window, but after Mattia Caldara moved to Milan, it's someone that Juventus is going to hold on to now for sure, because they're not going to want to sell both of their young, promising center backs in the same transfer window. And then one last report that we had come in from Italy recently that I should have mentioned earlier was Ricardo Rodriguez wants to stay at Milan. There's interest from PSG in the left back, but he is happy at Milan and wants to stay at Milan and believes in the new project. So unless Milan is persuaded by the offer from PSG and speaks to him about it, it looks like he's set to stay at the club as well.
Fantastic. Thank you, Claudio. And in Germany, we had an official deal today, essentially, as Alex Witsel joins Borussia Dortmund. What can you tell us about that, Axel?
Yep, the whole deal is done. He's signed. He's trained. He's posed for pictures. He's posed with fans. He's done all those things. So he's officially part of the crazy fan that is Borussia Dortmund. It's very fun transfer, I must say. It's one of those transfers that I think they definitely needed and wanted, and now they have some tenacity in the middle of the pitch, which is has been lacking in the last year, I think, since Gundogan left. So and have a new leader who will of course play, because Nuri Sahin is his lead, but he doesn't play that much. So they have a player that can now team up with Dahoud and Weigl to create a very capable midfield at Westfalenstadion again, which is very, very good. Yeah, I'm a big fan of this transfer. I think it's perfect for them. It's exactly what they need.
Lovely. And there are reports of Filip Kostic joining Wolfsburg this evening. What can you tell us about that?
Yes, seems to be a deal about I think 8 million, it says, which is well, it's okay business. I mean, Wolfsburg haven't made themselves a name for making a great business in the last few years. This summer they've already signed Andre Hahn from Hamburg, and now they signed, of course, will perhaps sign Filip Kostic from the same club. I'm not too fond of signing players who've been benched by more or less benched by a relegated team like Hamburg. So I'm not too sure that this is a good signing for Wolfsburg, but they seem to be aiming for another year of mediocrity. So I know it might be lying with the goals. 8 million for Kostic, decent money. I think it's good money for Hamburg, and it's a good deal decent deal at least for Wolfsburg, who of course have lots of money to spend.
Very well. And according to reports in Sweden, striker Isaac Kiese, I probably butchered that pronunciation. According to reports in Sweden, he may be headed to Bayer Leverkusen. What is the latest update on that?
Well, very reliable journalists in Sweden have more or less confirmed it. It seems to be it's quite strange deal for Bayer Leverkusen. It's probably a strange deal for Kiese as well, because of course Bayer Leverkusen have both Lucas Alario and Kevin Folland as strikers. So I can't imagine a world where Kiese, who scored lots of goals in Belgium last season, and of course played with Sweden at World Cup, will actually get playing time in North Rhine-Westphalia. But you never know. He could be a good squad player. He's of course a very tall striker, very good in the box, a target player, and he might perhaps be Stefan Kiesling's replacement as the legend retired last season. So it's most definitely would be a strange signing for both parties, but it could be good for them as well. I mean, to get a play like that, who can jump in and perhaps score and equalize or late winner or something like that. So could be nice. Transfer fee is still unspecified, but it's probably good money for all parties.
If that were to go through, do you think there could be any departures on the front line?
Not really. As I said, Stefan Kiesling retired last season, and that's probably why they decided to sign Kiesling, because they need another tall striker who can jump in and perhaps bring us some points in rough moments. I think that's probably the main goal with it. I can't see Leverkusen, a club on the clear up, selling any of the attacking players in order to sign Isaac Kiesling, or the other way around. So it should just be basically a clear replacement for Stefan Kiesling.
All right. And finally, there are reports of Aaron Martin joining Mainz from Espanyol. What is the update regarding that?
That's a done deal, actually. It was a loan deal. It's a loan deal with an obligation to buy, it seems. The loan deal itself costs 3 million for Mainz. And they have an obligation to buy if Aaron Martin plays more than 10 games, and then it will cost 6 million, it says. So it's a very good transfer. I think it's very good money for a very, very good left back, I think. So very good business for Mainz, who have made some amazing business in the last few years with, of course, signing Gimmerman and now they signed, of course, Jean-Philippe Mateta from Le Havre. So it's a club known for doing some good business and then developing the players, then selling them very expensively. So I think this is let's say, very Mainz signing, possibly even like quintessential Mainz, and it could be very, very good for them.
All right, thank you, Axel. Let's move on to France. Following the sale of Malcom, it seems as if Bordeaux are ready to spend their cash. Tom and Hal, can you walk us through what their dealings on the transfer market are?
Yeah, basically, it's a whole new strategy of what they're trying to go through. They've sold their star player in Malcom, in the controversial fashion in which they did. They sold him nonetheless. However, what they're doing also reminds me of a quote that was said here when Tottenham sold Gareth Bale. They've sold Elvis and they're buying the Beatles. Now, I wouldn't exactly express it the same way as this, but when they're signing players like Mikel Agu from FC Porto, according to French football, Naïm Sliti, who was very impressive for Dijon in the second half of the season, who will improve the team in terms of goal scoring, and also the Fluminense forward, Pedro, and they're very optimistic that this deal can go through. But I also think it's very smart of Bordeaux to invest the money in players in which they know can improve the team, in which they know can not necessarily fill the gap that Malcom left, because to fill the gap of one star player, it's hard to identify it by buying new players in different positions and hoping that they can all get together and have the same effect as he did. But the signings they're making look smart. They look like they make sense, and they look like they have a good future with Bordeaux. And I think in the past season or so, there's been a bit of confusion around Bordeaux. Sometimes they've made decisions that have confused people and left people scratching their heads. But in this sense, they've sold their star player, which was always going to happen. But they're not just keeping the money, they're investing it in areas in which they need assistance in. They've lost a goal threat in Malcom, so they're bringing one in from a rival in Dijon and Sliti. He was very impressive, and his goal return was quite impressive towards the back end of last season. So players like him and Pedro from Fluminense, I confess that I'm not exactly a Brazilian football connoisseur, but when you're paying 13.5 million for a player, you expect them to be worthy of the price tag, and you expect them to deliver when it matters. So it seems very smart in the same way that it makes sense and it needs to happen.
And what are your thoughts on Bordeaux's deep moves and dealings on the market, Hal?
Well, it's come after a lot of direct frustration borne out in the media from Gus Poyet. There's been a lot of, they haven't really signed anyone at all this summer. And Poyet's been crying out to the heavens for some movement. And it seems that Malcom's sale has has set the wheels in motion as such. So they are going out to boost their goal threat. The Pedro deal will probably be the most lucrative deal that they're going to be getting in, but I think it's looking that it's going to be worth around 13.5 million euros. So this is a player, from what I understand, other clubs in Europe have been chasing as well, including Seville, Lyon, and Dortmund. But Bordeaux hope that they've got a good pre-existing relationship with Fluminense, so that they're hoping that that's going to swing the deal in their favour.
And a big story tonight. Although he has been linked to Liverpool all summer long, it seems as if Chelsea have made a new approach for Nabil Fekir. What can you guys tell us about that update?
Yeah, so I'll go ahead with this. So this is a story that's moved quite quickly within the last 12 hours, really. So what I understand is that after the move for Fekir going to Liverpool completely broke down after a failed medical, and Leon publicly complaining about Liverpool's dealings with the move and with the projected transfer. Chelsea, although they haven't made a firm offer yet, they've made indirect. It's been made aware as such that they are preparing to make a substantial bid. It's probably going to be in excess of 50 million euros, as this was what I believe that Liverpool went in for. So Ansari is looking to increase his fluidity and his counter-attacking pace in offensive areas. So this is one of the, I think, the main deals that Chelsea will be looking to get over the line before the window ends.
Go ahead, Hal. Any thoughts?
Well, I mean, it's unlikely yet to be made certain that if this is if they're going to get this one over the line. It's been one of the longest running transfer sagas of the summer. So whether Chelsea can nip in and do this within a matter of 48, 72 hours after Liverpool took 3 to 4 weeks to get this deal done, this could be one of the deals of the last few days of the window.
I'd also say as well, before we move on, and just read out a quote here from Fekir when he was speaking to Lyon's official club television station. He says, "As you can see, I am in Lyon. I'm very happy here, but the transfer window is still long and everything goes very quickly in football. We don't know what will happen in the future, but I am very happy at Lyon." So, as football quotes go, when it comes to transfers, that is about standard as standard gets. But I think from Chelsea's point of view, as Hal touched on there, Sarri is used to having a front three that is quite fluid and can move about and play in almost any position. He's got that in Eden Hazard, provided he stays, and all signs show that he is looking likely to stay at Stamford Bridge. But Fekir in that front three alongside, they've been linked with Anthony Martial, which would be another good signing for them. But also, I think what's flown under the radar a little bit when it comes to this is it could be seen by Chelsea as a bit of a power play over Liverpool. Liverpool in the past 2 seasons have kind of stolen the headlines and stolen the thunder from almost every team in England because of Mo Salah and their fluidity in their front three and the spending they've had. So I think Chelsea would view it as almost, yes, you may have Champions League football, but we've got the one guy you wanted this summer. So I think, on a playing level, yes, it would improve them because obviously Fekir is a wonderful player and he would fit perfectly into a Maurizio Sarri side. But also off the pitch, I think it would be a flexing of muscles in a way in the transfer market when Chelsea have been, they've been somewhat criticised for what they've done so far.
Interesting point there, Tom. Perhaps it could salvage their transfer market this summer in some form if they pull off Fekir in the final days. Meanwhile, Marseille have agreed to sell Remy Cabella to Saint-Etienne. What can you guys tell us about the details of that deal?
Well, Remy Cabella was on loan at Saint-Etienne last year, and he had a good season. He sort of resurrected a stalling career last season, scoring, I believe he scored 7 goals in the 25 games he played. So Marseille seem happy to sell. They don't have plans for him in the first team next year. So the deal is mooted to be 7.5 million euros plus bonuses. So the finer details have to be ironed out in the next day or so, but this one should go through. Tom, do you think it would be a good move for Cabella to
Excuse me. Yeah, of course. It would be a move that would, as you mentioned there, he was on loan towards the second half of the season, and he, for the majority of the season rather, but he stood out as one of their talisman towards the second half of the season and stood out in a way that I think he has the talent to. He just needed the right environment to do it, and maybe Marseille wasn't that environment with, Kovan and Payet being so prominent in their roles. But the move makes sense for all parties. With Saint-Etienne getting a player that they had before, it's, someone that they can bed into the system quite easily. They're not spending an outrageous amount of money, and everybody's familiar with him. Remy Cabella gets to play in an environment where he's shown he's flourished. He's shown that he can fit in and suit their style. And Marseille get rid of a player that they weren't really intending to use and weren't banking on in any way. So I think it's a move that, one, makes sense, and two, is something that all three parties need.
All right. And on to the last two stories this evening. Despite Yerry Mina being involved in Barcelona's offer to Manchester United for Paul Pogba, Lyon remained confident in signing the Colombian center back. Do you guys think Lyon can pull off this deal?
I think as you mentioned there, he's been linked with Manchester United in that spectacular and outrageous trade with Manchester United for Paul Pogba. As I say it sounds ridiculous, but I think the main part of this for the Yerry Mina transfer is between Lyon and Everton. And without being too disrespectful to Lyon, Everton have the Premier League money that can blow most teams out of the water. I think it is just a case of where Mina himself wants to play. And I think I've seen reports suggesting that he is actually, quite keen on joining Lyon. It seems to be a better environment, and with Marco Silva going into Everton, we don't know what's going to happen. We don't know how everything's going to react. We don't know what the system's going to be, and maybe Mina knows something we don't. And I think he seems set on playing in Europe, certainly in the continent. And Lyon is a good team to play for. It's a good setup, and as Fekir himself said it later on in the quote that we mentioned, he feels they've got a really good squad. Maybe Mina feels the same way, but I think ultimately what it comes down to is who can outbid the other. Can Everton use their financial muscle to push Lyon out of the way, or will the players wish to play for Lyon overcome anything else?
Yeah, I mean, just following on from what you were saying there about Mina's preference. From what I understand, the Mina's preference lies with the fact that Lyon are in the Champions League and Everton aren't. It's quite clear that Everton would have could offer probably more money than Lyon, maybe possibly, and they've got a very good squad set up of their own and will have money to spend, but. Lyon is a good club to play for, and he will definitely further his playing career and get first team football consistently at Lyon. So it probably will go down to a bidding war in the next few evenings.
And lastly, there are reports that Everton are in negotiations with Lille for defender Adama Soumaru. Apologies for my pronunciation. What do we think about the Lille defender's potential move to the Premier League, gentlemen?
Well, I think it would be, I think a lot of it comes off the back of what we were just saying about Yerry Mina and how he might be their main target at Everton. But I think the Merseyside team probably look at it and they realistically assume that Mina's first choice may not be Goodison Park, so they've decided to look for another player that can, play a similar way and suits their style, and someone that won't break the bank. And they've obviously identified Soumaru from Lille, and I think it'd be a good signing for him. I think it'd be a good fit and someone that is quite a talented player, but also isn't. He just wants to play football, and I think that's a very important factor for a club like Everton. When they don't have Champions League football to offer, they don't have Europa League football to offer, they've got to have people that want to play for the club, they want to play in the Premier League, and they want to play for Marco Silva. And I think they identified this guy ahead of Mina as someone that they can as a more available alternative, and also someone that wants to play for Everton as opposed to a Champions League club solely.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's quite clear with the expansion of all these deals, and with a lot of clubs with their hand in multiple deals. I think that it's quite clear that clubs like Everton and Lyon have a plan A, a plan B, and another fallback option, an insurance of a third option. Samara probably is their plan B if Mina doesn't go through. But just to follow on from what Tom said, I think Samara wants to build his playing development. He wants first team football. He won't be guaranteed that at Everton because it's a competitive Premier League squad, but he will certainly be playing in a very, very highly competitive league, one of the top 3 leagues in Europe. And he's 26 years old, so he needs to be playing first team football.
No doubt, certainly. Thank you, guys. And that is all for this evening. My thanks to Claudio, Axel, Tom, and Hal for their company, and the same to all of you at home. Please join us again tomorrow for more from the crazy world of the transfer window. Good evening.